It was Wednesday, late November, in Washington, D.C. People were getting ready for Thanksgiving. But this calm day was broken by a terrible event near the White House, a famous building in the United States Capitol. Two members of the National Guard were on patrol. They were soldiers helping to keep the city safe. Suddenly, an attacker appeared and shot them without warning. This kind of attack is called an ambush. It left the two guardsmen badly hurt. The sounds of gunshots shocked everyone nearby. Police cars and ambulances came very fast. The area quickly became a scene of confusion. News of the shooting spread across the city and the country. People could not believe what had happened. Washington, D.C. was stunned by this unexpected act of violence. The two National Guard members were taken to a hospital in very serious condition. A large investigation began at once. Many police officers and special agents started working. They wanted to find out who the shooter was and why he did it. The whole city waited for answers, filled with sadness and worry. President Donald Trump, who was spending the holiday in Florida, was informed about the attack. This event changed the feeling of the holiday season in the nation's capital. 2. A sudden attack. The attack happened fast. It was Wednesday, November 26, 2025. The time was around 2:15 in the afternoon. The place was very specific, near Farragut Square, at the intersection of 17th and I Street Northwest. This busy corner is close to the Farragut West Metro Station, in the heart of downtown Washington, D.C. Two National Guard members from West Virginia were on their routine patrol, walking the streets as they usually did. Without warning, a man suddenly appeared from around a corner. He had a firearm in his hand. He quickly raised it and opened fire on the two unsuspecting guardsmen. It was a brutal and unprovoked ambush. There was no sound before the shots, no chance for the guardsmen to prepare. Witnesses nearby were shocked. They reported hearing many gunshots, anywhere from 5 to 15 loud noises echoing through the street. After the first burst of shots, there was a quick exchange of fire involving the attacker and other National Guard personnel who were close by. During this quick and violent moment, one of the female National Guard members was hit. She was shot in the chest and then in the head. The second National Guard member was also struck by bullets. Luckily, a third National Guard member was present at the scene. This brave person reacted immediately and helped to stop the shooter. It is still not fully known whether police officers or National Guard members fired the shots that wounded the suspect, but it was clear he was injured during the fight. Emergency help arrived very quickly. Police cars and emergency medical teams rushed to the scene within minutes. Vito Maggiolo, who speaks for D.C. Fire and Emergency Medical Services, confirmed that 3 people were taken to local hospitals. These were the 2 wounded National Guard members and the attacker. One of the injured guardsmen was flown to the hospital by a special medical helicopter. The other Guard member and the suspect traveled by ambulance. The Metropolitan Police Department secured the area very fast. They confirmed that one suspect was arrested before 3 p.m. that same afternoon, bringing the immediate chaos to an end. 3. 2 soldiers and a shooter. The 2 brave soldiers who were shot belonged to the West Virginia National Guard. They were on a regular patrol near Farragut Square when the sudden attack happened. Both were seriously hurt and needed urgent medical help. One female soldier was shot in the chest and head. The other soldier also received gunfire injuries. They were quickly taken to hospitals in critical condition. One even went by a special medical helicopter. News about their health was confusing right after the event. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey first announced on social media that both soldiers had died. This brought deep sadness. However, just a short time later, Governor Morrisey posted again, saying he had conflicting reports and would update soon. This made people unsure about the soldiers' fate. FBI Director Kash Patel later said both were in critical condition. President Donald Trump from Mar-a-Lago also stated that the guardsmen were critically wounded. These different reports caused confusion among the public. Sadly, as the evening of November 26 arrived, the worst fears were confirmed. Both members of the West Virginia National Guard passed away from their terrible injuries. Their deaths marked a tragic end to a day of violence in the Capitol. The military and the nation recognized their sacrifice. However, their names and personal details were not released to the public at that time. Soon after the shooting, law enforcement officers identified the person they believed was the shooter. His name was Rahmanullah Lakanwal. He was 29 years old and an Afghan national. Records showed that Lakanwal had come to the United States in 2021. He entered the country through a special program called Operation Allies Welcome. This program helped people from Afghanistan resettle in the U.S. after important events in his home country. Law enforcement reported that Lakanwal's last known home was in Bellingham, Washington. He was shot 4 times during the incident, but his injuries were not life-threatening. He was also taken to a hospital. Investigators then began to look closely into Lakanwal's history and reasons for the attack. 4. The big investigation. Rahmanullah Lakanwal was from Afghanistan. He came to the United States in 2021 under a special program. His visa, which allowed him to stay, expired in September 2025. This meant that when the shooting happened, he was living in the country illegally. Lakanwal used a handgun in the attack. After he was caught by other National Guard members and law enforcement, he was shot 4 times. His injuries were not serious or life-threatening. When police asked him questions about the shooting, Lakanwal did not help them. He did not say why he attacked the soldiers. He also had no identification on him, which made it harder for the police to learn more about him. The shooting brought a very big response from many police and federal groups. The local Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI, and the U.S. Secret Service all quickly came to the scene. Other important groups like Homeland Security, the ATF, and U.S. Marshals also helped in the investigation. Everyone worked together to find out exactly what happened and why. FBI Director Kash Patel spoke about the case. He said the FBI would lead the entire investigation. They would work closely with D.C. police and all other federal and state police groups. Director Patel said this was a very important matter for national security. He promised that the FBI would use all its resources to find out everything. They wanted to keep Washington, D.C. safe and bring anyone responsible for this terrible act to justice. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser also held a press conference. She described the incident as a targeted shooting. She confirmed that police had one person in custody. Police quickly looked at video from cameras near the shooting location. The video showed one person, a lone gunman, who shot the National Guard members. Other National Guard members and police quickly caught him. At that time, police said there were no other shooters involved in the attack. This big investigation started immediately. Experts from many different agencies came together to search for clues and talk to people. They wanted to understand why Lakanwal attacked the soldiers. Finding his motive was very important for the case. Without his cooperation, it was a hard job for the police. The FBI's leadership meant that many federal resources would be used to check Lakanwal's past and how he lived. They would look for any possible links to other people or groups. The goal was to make sure all questions were answered, as the entire city looked to these investigators for answers about the shocking event. 5. Leaders speak. After the sad event, leaders quickly spoke about what happened. President Donald Trump was in Florida for Thanksgiving. He quickly spoke about the shooting. On Truth Social, he called the person who shot the guardsman the animal. He said this person was also hurt, but would pay a very steep price. President Trump then asked for more security. He wanted 500 more National Guard troops to come to Washington, D.C. He believed this would make the capital city safer. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth confirmed this order. He said President Trump told him to ask for these extra troops. Hegseth added that the shooter acted in a very bad way. He called the guardsmen heroes who serve their country and community. Vice President J.D. Vance was in Kentucky visiting soldiers. He heard the news there. He asked everyone to pray for the National Guard members. He said the shooting was a sad reminder that soldiers are important protectors of the United States. Many politicians from different parties spoke about the attack. Former President Barack Obama posted online. He said violence should not happen in America and sent his good thoughts to the soldiers and their families. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also shared his sadness for the victims. Leaders from West Virginia, where the two soldiers came from, shared their pain. A Democratic leader, Mike Pushkin, said the sad event was important for everyone, no matter their political party. He noted that two families would have a terrible Thanksgiving because of their loss. Two Democratic state governors also spoke out. Governor Wes Moore of Maryland said they strongly spoke against this violence. Governor Gavin Newsom of California also condemned the attack. All leaders agreed that the shooting was a terrible act. 6. Soldiers in the city. The National Guard members were in Washington, D.C. for a special reason. Their presence was part of a big and often talked about plan. President Donald Trump had ordered their deployment to the city many months before the tragic shooting. This began in August 2025. President Trump said the city had a serious problem with crime. He called it a public safety emergency. He stated that Washington, D.C. was overrun by violent gangs and ruthless criminals. His administration's main goal was to make the capital safer. He wanted to save our nation's capital from crime, chaos, disorder, and destitution. When the deployment started, about 800 National Guard members came to the city. As part of this effort, the Trump administration also temporarily took control of the city's police department, which was an unusual step. However, this decision to deploy troops was controversial from the very beginning. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser strongly disagreed with President Trump's reasons. She pointed out that official data showed violent crime had actually reached a 30-year low in the district. The mayor believed that the administration's claims about a huge crime wave were not supported by facts. Many residents and local leaders also felt that bringing soldiers into the city for civilian policing was not the right solution. They worried about the appearance of a militarized city. Despite the disagreements and the local opposition, the National Guard deployment continued. In fact, it grew larger over time. By November 2025, the number of National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. had increased significantly. There were between 2,100 and 2,375 National Guard members stationed in the capital. These soldiers came from many different states. Their duties included daily patrols in public areas, helping to support federal law enforcement operations, and even assisting with tasks like collecting trash in the city. The deployment also faced serious legal challenges. In late November 2025, just before the shooting, a federal judge made an important ruling. The court decided that the deployment was illegal and that it went beyond the power of the Trump administration. This legal judgment added another layer of controversy to the situation. However, the judge decided to pause the ruling for 21 days. This pause gave the administration time to appeal the decision to a higher court, meaning the soldiers remained in place despite the court's finding. This legal uncertainty meant that the National Guard's presence in the Capitol continued amidst a cloud of debate. These were the circumstances for the soldiers. They were in the city, ordered there by the president to reduce crime, but facing opposition from local government and a court ruling that questioned their legality. Their daily presence was a clear sign of the ongoing tensions and differing views on how to ensure safety in the nation's capital. This complex situation was the backdrop for their presence, making them literally soldiers in the city. 7. Looking for answers. The central question after the tragic shooting was simple. Why? What was the attacker's reason for killing 2 National Guard members? Ramanula Lochinwall, the suspect, was not talking to the police. He refused to give any information, and he had no identification when he was caught. This made it very hard for investigators to understand his motive. It was like solving a puzzle with many missing pieces. Without his cooperation, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies looked for answers in other ways. They examined every piece of evidence they could find. This included his computer and phone records, his social media activity, and any people he knew. They wanted to find out if the attack was about his beliefs, a personal problem, or something else. Was it an act of hate against the government or military? Was it meant to send a political message? These deep questions were central to the investigation. Because of where and how the attack happened, federal authorities investigated it as a possible act of terrorism. Senior law enforcement officials said the FBI immediately saw it as a potential act of terrorism. The Justice Department also confirmed this view. For an act to be called terrorism, it means it was done for strong political, religious, or ideological reasons. The goal is often to scare people or force changes in government policy. Targeting uniformed soldiers on duty, especially in Washington, D.C., could fit this definition. However, proving this was difficult without Lochinwall's help or clear signs of a bigger plan. The fact that Lochinwall was an Afghan national who had overstayed his visa also raised serious national questions. He came to the U.S. under Operation Allies Welcome after events in Afghanistan in 2021. His visa expired in September 2025, which meant he was living in the United States illegally for more than 2 months before the shooting. This situation brought much attention to how the U.S. tracks people with expired visas. People wondered, how many others are living in the country illegally? Why was Lochinwall not found and deported before this attack? This tragic event made many people think deeply about U.S. immigration rules and border security. There was a clear need to review how visas are checked and how people are vetted in programs like Operation Allies Welcome. The shooting also made everyone worry about security in important places in Washington, D.C. The attack happened in the middle of the day, near a busy metro station and close to the White House. This area is always full of people, including tourists and government workers. How could an armed person ambush soldiers in such a high-security, visible location? This suggested that there might be weak points in the city's security plans. Law enforcement experts asked, how did Lochinwall position himself without being detected? Were there any warning signs of hostile intent that someone missed? What current rules exist for finding threats in crowded public areas? These concerns would lead to thorough reviews of security rules and possibly new protocols in the nation's capital. Officials wanted to make sure similar attacks could not happen again, especially in the heart of American democracy. The investigation was very complex, trying to connect Lochinwall's past with his violent actions. Finding any possible links to larger groups or specific beliefs was key. The answers they found would not only help explain this terrible tragedy, but also shape future policies on national security and immigration in the United States. 8. What happens next? The shooting in Washington, D.C. was a very serious event. It caused great sadness and made many people think about important questions for the future. The death of the two National Guard soldiers had far-reaching consequences, affecting talks about national security, immigration, and the role of the military in American cities. Investigators still need to find answers. A main question is Rav Manula Lakanwal's motive for the attack. Was it an act of terror, or did he have other reasons? Officials also need to know why he was living in the U.S. illegally after his visa ended, and if any warning signs were missed before the attack. There are also questions about security around important places in the Capitol, like near the White House, and if there were gaps that allowed the ambush to happen. This event has strengthened ongoing debates across the country. People are discussing how to keep cities safe, how strict immigration rules should be, and whether having soldiers in cities helps or hurts. The controversial deployment of the National Guard to Washington, D.C. continues to be a big topic of discussion, with different views on its purpose and legality. The memory of the two fallen soldiers remains. Their deaths are a tragic reminder of the dangers that people in uniform can face. The nation looks for ways to prevent such violence and to ensure security while respecting different views on these important issues. Do you think the presence of the National Guard in a city makes it safer or creates more tension?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.